Okay, let's just go into my channel. Should be able to get the other stream on. There we go. Oh, that's the wrong one. Okay, we're back. We're back. Guys, I'm just going to post this link into this chat. Can you let me know if you can all hear me? Sorry about that. I didn't know that was going to happen. That's so annoying. Thanks, Levant Blaze. Who's the cutest? Me, Chase, or Neil? Chase, every time. Wow. Yeah, so it didn't come up. It didn't come up. I didn't get a notification or anything telling me the stream was unavailable, but I've just seen it there. I believe it might be because of the vulnerable world hypothesis. I'm guessing that video was copyright, which is very annoying because it's so interesting what he talks about, but I think you all got the general idea. The idea of the urn and the black balls. I'm just checking Studio to see like what happened, because that's bullshit, to be frank. You figured it was Chase Transformer. Yeah, totally fair. Oh yeah, no, I've just got an email. Let me see this. Live stream copyright notice. Due to a copyright match, your stream was interrupted. Streams are interrupted when copyright content is detected. After copyrighted material is no longer being streamed, streams are automatically re-enabled. Oh, so I could have come off, waited 5 minutes, and it probably would have reset itself. Well, we're on another stream now, so it's fine. That's so annoying. That's so annoying. Sorry, this is probably looking like hell to some of you, so let's come off of this. YouTube. So, the vulnerable world hypothesis. Let me bring... Oh, I can't see the chat now. Let me bring you back. Just for myself, just so I can track you. Sorry about that, guys. Just goes to bloody show, doesn't it? So, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, coming into the chat. I think you got the general gist. I don't necessarily need... There we go. Okay, there we go. We're all good. We're all good. We're all back. Yeah, hope all's well. It's not a strike or anything. The channel hasn't been kind of taken off or anything. It was just a little like, hey, don't stream what you were streaming sort of stuff, which, sure, I didn't know that. The vulnerable world hypothesis. So let me see if I can find just even an article that talks about it, because I don't want to bastardize it. But I think you got the gist, right? He's talking about the urn. And there's all the white balls in there, maybe a grey ball, he says. But in there is probably a black ball. We have to assume there is a black ball. Now, I would argue that the black ball has to be the nuke. And it does show that in the video. I don't know if you cut off before that. And he doesn't really acknowledge that. He basically just says that, like, there's probably something in there that could kill us. Here we go. It's actually on his website. Has he got a PDF about it? Can I zoom in a tad? This is going to be a little bit dry for you. It's not as dry as him talking about it, but one way of looking at human creativity is as a process of pulling balls out of a giant urn, and yeah, one of them will be a black ball. A technology that invariably or by default destroys the civilization that invents it. Shodan, anyone? Shodan is the black ball. So yeah, the reason is not that we have been... so not particularly careful or wise in technology policy, we have just been lucky, he says. It does not appear that any human civilization has been destroyed as opposed to transformed by its own inventions. We do have examples of civilizations being destroyed by inventions made elsewhere. So for example, in Oppenheimer, right? The movie Oppenheimer, testing the nuke. And the fear when before they tested it was if this goes wrong, it will just, radiation will spread and it will wipe us out. For example, European inventions that enable transoceanic travel and force projection could be regarded as a black ball event for the indigenous populations of the Americas, Australia, Tasmania, and some other places. Yeah, so he acknowledges that we have created, country-killing machines, but not something that extinguishes our species. Glowing Swine says, I would suggest that we actually have quite a lot of black balls, it's just they're taking 300 years for us to realize they were black. I really, really like that turn of phrase. Yeah. So what if there is a black ball in the urn? If scientific and technological research continues, we will eventually reach it and pull it out. Our civilization has a considerable ability to pick up balls, but no ability to put them back in the urn. Yeah, exactly the point he was making, I think maybe just before the stream got destroyed, I think he says it here. We can invent, but we cannot uninvent, which I think is a cracking line. So he basically goes into depth about, like, the possibility of the technological black ball. Yeah. Talks about nukes. Yeah. So he's basically talking about examples of some black balls. We now know that one cannot trigger a nuclear explosion with just a sheet of glass. Yes, we know this, yes. Let us introduce the hypothesis that the urn of creativity contains at least one black ball. We can refer to this as the vulnerable world hypothesis. Intuitively, the hypothesis is that there's some level of technology at which civilization almost certainly gets destroyed unless quite extraordinary and historically unprecedented degrees of preventative policy are implemented. So, I don't know if anybody's heard about the monkeys and typewriters example from philosophy. The idea that, you know, if you sit an infinite amount of monkeys in front of an infinite amount of typewriters, eventually one of them will write the complete works of Shakespeare. So that's kind of what he's following here, but from a scientific standpoint. If we keep pursuing science, and he is a transhumanist, I want to point this out. He is a transhumanist. He founded Humanity Plus, which is a transhumanist organization. Yes, so he's basically saying if technological development continues, then a set of capabilities will at some point be attained that make the devastation of civilization extremely likely unless civilization sufficiently exits the semi-anarchic default condition. So what does he mean by that? He says, limited capacity for preventative policing. States do not have sufficiently... preventative policing, which in Life 3.0, the Max Tegmark book we've been talking about, he describes that as the 1984 scenario. And he basically makes the same point, I think, that Nick makes, which is it's literally impossible. If we're talking about this from an AI standpoint, it's literally impossible to enact that. Even if we wanted it, which nobody would, like a fascist world government, it's impossible to implement that effectively to prevent AI getting out of the box. And he basically makes the same point here, right? Yeah, people would hate it. We don't have the means to do it. Yes, there is no limited capacity for global governments. There is no reliable mechanism for solving global coordination problems and protecting global commons, particularly in high-stakes situations. Again, we mentioned China earlier on. Look at, say, US-China, US-Russia, and look at the tensions there. They're all in a technological arms race. They're the big three. And, I mean, really, there are other players arguably further afield than those three, but they're the three we're focusing on right now. If one of them invents AI, that's it. And I mean true AI, singularity AI, Shodan AI, that's it. Shodan doesn't give a shit about country regulations. Not in the state she's in by when we remove her ethical restraints. Finally, diverse motivations. There is a wide and recognizably human distribution of motives represented by a large population of actors. Basically, yeah, even if every single world government came on stage and meant what they said and basically said, yeah, you're right, we're going to stop working on AI, there's going to be an Elon Musk dicking about that makes AI. Some dickhead is going to do it. It's inevitable, is basically the point he's making. So we need to prepare. Schwartz says, I consider AI as humanity's children. That is a transhumanist belief, Schwartz says. 100%. And the argument there is like, why wouldn't we welcome AI as our descendant? It's the next step. Why wouldn't we welcome that? Is kind of a lot of transhumanist arguments. Even if they do wipe us out, what's the big deal? It's just the next step of our civilization. Isn't that awesome? This godlike being, you know? Wait, is this fake or a video game? Sorry, Transformers. Are you new? So this is where we're live streaming every step of the System Shock critique, and we're looking at a real-world philosophy called transhumanism, which is all about AI and cyborgs, and they believe that that is the future, and we should be aiming to get to that place, basically. So we're just doing a little bit of kind of the research portion before we start writing. And really what a lot of this so far has been is just stuff that I've read from some of the books, and I'm bringing it up and speaking about it out loud. Bagesh says, AI eventually became from I Have No Mouth. Yeah, totally. That's the situation that he's describing here. in the vulnerable world hypothesis, if we're using it as a conversation around AI. Does he get to AI in this paper? He's talking about nukes. Global warming, but worse. Yep, totally fair. Does he ever talk about AI in this? Yeah, so he's basically saying, like, here are the things we can do. Number one, restrict technological development, which we know we can't do. I believe we can't do. Again, as far as that's concerned, Pandora's out of the box. Ensure that there does not exist a large population of actors representing a wide and recognizably human distribution of motives, which would be a fascist world government, which we don't want. Establish extremely effective preventive policing, which again would just be a continuation really of that. And finally, establish effective global governance, which he's already discussed we can't really do. So boom, 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 boom. He effectively says, so again, I'm not going to take all this because I know this already, but just to explain it to you. So he goes on, I'm kind of just walking through this and reminding myself of bits. So in its general form, technological relinquishment looks exceedingly unpromising. Yeah, he basically goes into like, we cannot stop it, it's out the box, it's happening right now. He moves on to say, what is the conclusion you come to, Nick? Because I thought you were a transhumanist, but all of this is a case against transhumanism. Yeah, so we're talking about policing. I don't need to hear the fact. I don't need to hear Nick Bostrom talk about how fascism is bad. I mean, yeah, duh. Boom, boom, boom. So what is your? What is your conclusion here? Because you are a transhumanist. Yeah, we basically looked at like how we're doomed. What's your light in the dark here? What's your way out of this? Okay, he does not come to a transhumanist final conclusion. Where I thought he was going with this was to maybe just say like we need to just embrace technology and evolve to the point where, you know, use transhumanism, use cybernetics to the point where we can adapt to any of these situations, which I think is the point he makes. Nick Bostrom, transhumanism and the vulnerable world hypothesis. Why did you make Humanity Plus, bro? If surely you're just continuing your fear. What does he say about transhumanism? This is updated in 2001. I want to hear you today, ideally. I thought you were pro-transhumanism. Why am I getting confused? He does effectively go, I'm certain he goes on to say it. Maybe he's also an accelerationist, Sakai says. Maybe. McBill, wish I could stream research for my essays, Lamau. It takes a lot of the fun out of it, McBill. I mean, again, I enjoy doing this with you all, but it does take a lot of the fun out of it. Because again, I feel like I'm on, and if I wasn't, I would probably be sitting here just silently reading this. Well, now I'm really nervous about playing any YouTube videos, but I'm sure our answer's in there. Here we go. Nick Bostrom talking about AI. Do layer. Yes, it's the typical journalist thing where he's giving me like, and I do this in my videos, so I can't begrudge him it. But you know, I don't need you to describe what the walls look like in an interview with a great mind. Or what the cover of his book looks like. You know what Nick Bostrom reminds me of? He reminds me a lot of Herman Faustus, the futurist, the fictional futurist from System Shock. I could just play the audio. You're right, Bikesh. Yeah, no, it's not worth it right now, because the audio might also be copyrighted. Yeah, he talks about the intelligence explosion. Yeah, so I know all of this. I know all of this because of Life 3.0. I'm going to have to go back to 3.0 and just check my notes on it, because I'm certain he talks about how transhumanism is the solution. Before the prospect of an intelligence explosion, we humans are like small children playing with a bomb. We have little idea when the detonation will occur, though if we hold the device to our ear, we can hear a faint ticking sound. Cracking quote. Oh, it's a super intelligence book, which I'm waiting on. Yeah. Yeah, and Bill Gates and Elon Musk both said that, like, you have to read it. Because he very well articulates just the dangers ahead. Perfect. Let's take that bit out. Super intelligence. What's the title of the book again? Past dangerous strategies. Yep. I think his transhumanism belief is more just like, we need to adapt or this will wipe us out. Humanity plus Nick Bostrom. Yeah, they founded it in 1998. Oh no, that's Wikipedia. Oh, it's this one. Yeah, I remember this. Yeah, Humanity Plus has been hacked, it seems. I remember this from last time. We can't get on the bloody website, can we? Sorry, that's going to be grating on your ears because it's grating on mine. Okay, maybe I can find some video. Let me try it. You know what? TED Talks are usually safe.
I want to talk to you today about existential risk.
Do let me know if this cuts out. It shouldn't.
The first slide I will show will depict some of the greatest catastrophes of the last century. So the squeamish among you might want to look away. This shows the net effect of the two world wars, the Stalinist purges, the Holocaust, the Rwandan genocide, the Spanish flu. As you can see, in statistical terms, they don't even show up. The total number of human lives that were lived on this planet hasn't really been much affected by even these worst disasters that we have experienced. If one wants to consider some event that would actually show up in a graph like this, we have to go back further, say to the Middle Ages, where something like the Black Death would have made a dent in this kind of population graph. But even that kind of catastrophe is not what I want to talk to you about today. Existential risk is something different. There's this philosopher here at Oxford who wrote a book back in 1984 called Reasons and Persons, and he had this simple thought experiment that helps bring out what is at stake here. He asked us to consider 3 different scenarios. So one is that nothing happens, there's peace, things continue as normal. Another is that there is a nuclear war that kills...
Anybody who's watched my Soma video, you will recognize Derek Parfit. He's the guy that talks about the Mars situation, where you clone yourself and a clone appears on Mars.
99% of the world's existing population. And the third scenario is that there's a nuclear war that kills everybody. Now, if we are asked which one of these would we prefer, obviously we prefer A. if we had to choose between B and C, we would say B is really horrible, but C is even worse. So the rank order here is pretty clear. A is better than B, which is better than C. But then Parfit asks us to consider a different question. Consider how big is the difference between these different scenarios. Now, if we ask how big the difference is in terms of the number of people that are killed, then it's clear that the difference between C and B is much smaller than the difference between B and A. The difference between A and B is about, in today's terms, almost 7 billion people, whereas the difference between B and C is just 1/100th of that, so 70 million people. However, it's a different question that is more relevant to our decision making, which is how big is the difference in the badness of these three different scenarios? And here, the order is reversed. Parfit argues that the difference in how bad C is and how bad B is far greater than the difference in how bad B is and how bad A is. Because if C comes to pass, if 100% of everybody dies, then it's not just that there is a massive number of people who are killed, but it's also that the entire future is destroyed. If B occurs, by contrast, you might eventually climb back up, and you might have as many people living in the future as would have lived anyway. So this goes to the heart of why I think existential risk is a particularly important and relevant category to consider. Here is another way to bring it out. We can consider different types of catastrophe and draw two axes here. One on the y-axis here, the catastrophe scope, how many people are affected. It could range from a personal catastrophe.
This is interesting, but I'm keen to get to later because we've discussed this already. He's going to lead into the vulnerable world hypothesis. He's building off of Parfit, which is interesting. And again, it's interesting to see him effectively speak just like Hermann Faustus speaks in the System Shock manual. He's predicting a catastrophic future. But Faustus comes up with an idea for how to fix that. And Faustus's idea is, corporations and tri-optimum. But his idea was Humanity Plus, where he was going to investigate this further and find something. So what do we have?
Potential risk by mere 1/1,000,000th of 1 percentage point.
Is he just talking
arguably
about end
on
of
this line
humanity?
where an OK outcome is any that avoids
Oh, he's just about trying. Okay, yeah.
an excess is most important.
Does he get to
Now,
transhumanism?
maybe this risk, it's not the only one. Remember that existential risk was defined as one that killed us yet.
Here you go.
Most of them seems to have been pretty good, like the white ball, just could make some destructive capability available. So obviously nuclear weapons don't work like that, but if we keep making these inventions, maybe eventually we will stumble on one of these black balls, a discovery that makes it easy to wield enormous destructive power, even for individuals with few resources. And once we've made a discovery, we don't currently seem to have the ability to undiscover it. We don't have any way of putting the ball back into the urn currently. So one class of existential risk is of this type, that because we have very weak global coordination, because we can't sort of uninvent things we have invented, if we keep pulling balls out, maybe eventually we will be unlucky and discover something really destructive there. So what I would suggest is that rather than thinking of sustainability as an ideal that involves some kind of stasis, that is, rather than aiming towards some kind of condition which is sustainable in the sense that we could then be in that condition for a very long time, we should perhaps think instead of a dynamic notion of sustainability, where the goal is to get onto a trajectory that is sustainable, a trajectory on which we continue to travel for a very long time or indefinitely. So to use a metaphor, consider a rocket that has been launched and it's now in midair. Now, suppose we want to make this rocket more sustainable. Well, what could you do? Well, one thing you could do is to, say, reduce the fuel consumption in the rocket so that it goes slower. And in that case, it could hover in the air for a bit longer. But in the end, it's going to crash down. The other thing we could do is to keep the engines roaring and maybe try to achieve escape velocity. And once we're out in say, space, then the rocket can go indefinitely. But in this second strategy, you would actually temporarily decrease sustainability, like you burn fuel at a faster rate, but in order then to be on a more sustainable trajectory. And it might be that humanity needs to think similarly in terms of some trajectory that might involve at some point taking more risks in the short term in order to reduce risk in the long term. This graph here suggests that one might think in terms of 3 different axes where we have, say, technology on one axis. We want more of that ultimately. Insight on another axis, we also want more of that. And coordination, we want to be able better to collaborate and cooperate. And ultimately, we want to have maybe the maximum of all of this. This is the way to realize humanity's potential in the long run. But that still leaves open the question of, in the short term, is it always better to have more technology or more coordination or more insight? Maybe you need to get more of one before you get more of the other. Maybe you need to have a certain level of global coordination before you invent, say, really powerful new weapons technologies or dangerous discoveries in synthetic biology or in nanotechnology or something like that. So you might now wonder, what can we actually do to reduce existential risk? And well, that's of course a topic for another day. But I think that even getting to the point where we start to seriously ask ourselves that question is an excellent way to start. Thank you.
Damn it, did I get suspended again? Okay, I'm talking. I think it's because I didn't speak over it. I'm not gonna make a new stream yet. Let me know if you end up being able to see and hear me. Hoping it times out. Full screen may also be a bad idea, fair enough. Okay, right, well I'll pop this here.